7. Barrett outside the switch. Doncic goes, oh, what a great step! And then he hammers it home. Broke his ankles.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. I hope you guys are doing well, and we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the NBA world, specifically revolving around Donovan Mitchell and the New York Knicks. You could say some other teams as well, like the Miami Heat and the Brooklyn Nets, because remember those reports that came out, or a report that came out a week ago that the Knicks weren't interested in trading for Donovan Mitchell? Well, now they are. And the Brooklyn Nets are as well, and the Miami Heat are still in those sweepstakes. I've seen reports come out about them potentially trading for Donovan Mitchell. So this is big time news. This is crazy. The Jazz are listening to calls. A report came out yesterday that they're listening to calls. At first they weren't, because they're like, let's wait and see how this plays out. But maybe the Jazz are like, if we get the right package in return, maybe we should try to just build a longevity, consistent winner. We got a lot of assets back in the Rudy Gobert trade. I thought they did a pretty good job in that trade. So they're like, why not? We're probably not the best of team right now. Let's look towards the future. Maybe that is Danny Ainge's mindset. So a report came out by a reliable source that actually covers the Utah Jazz. His Twitter @ is per T Jones, or T Jones of the NBA. He covers the Jazz and he covers the Athletic. It says the Knicks are expected to quickly try and put together a trade package for Donovan Mitchell. That came out 21 hours ago. I'm sorry I was not able to cover it right away. I was doing some other things. And then a reporter, Brian Windhorst, actually went on to say the Knicks have 8 tradable first-round picks and a desire for a star player like Donovan Mitchell. Some people believe this is inevitable. I think we're going to hear a lot about Mitchell and the New York Knicks in the coming days. So that is big time there. And then Ian Begley, you could, like, in my opinion, the number one beat writer when it comes to the New York Knicks. Definitely the most popular, definitely one of the most reliable. I feel like he gets the most news about the New York Knicks as soon as stuff comes out, or rumors or speculation. So Ian Begley notes on the Donovan Mitchell situation. That's the cover of the article. Ian Begley notes on the Donovan Mitchell situation, including what Jazz want and Knicks' reluctance to trade RJ Barrett. So yes, RJ Barrett's off the table. If the Jazz's final offer is like, yup, we'll give you Donovan Mitchell or whatever else, Donovan Mitchell obviously being the top priority for the New York Knicks, but you have to give us RJ Barrett, the New York Knicks are most likely going to say no. So you could say RJ Barrett's pretty much untouchable, and they really value him to be an all-star one day, or be this very good player down the road, or hopefully this upcoming season. But obviously we haven't given him a max extension yet, and I'm interested to see how that would play out. Though I don't want him to be traded to the Jazz, but if he got traded to the Jazz, would they just extend him right away or wait till the season is over? I feel like you kind of have to extend him if you're trading Donovan Mitchell. You have to put belief in RJ Barrett, but I don't know. The whole RJ Barrett contract situation is very interesting, but yes, RJ Barrett's completely off the table. They're not including them in a Donovan Mitchell trade. And it says teams gauging the trade market for Mitchell says Utah currently seeks a return similar to the Rudy Gobert trade. The Jazz received pretty much, I believe, 5 first-rounders because they got Walker Kessler that resulted in a draft pick selection in 2022. And most of those draft picks are actually unprotected. So I believe like 3 out of those 4, because actually I believe they received 4. I was just like saying Walker Kessler. So those are going to be some valuable picks, or some people may say the Timberwolves are going to be good. So maybe those picks won't be great, but a lot of people said the same thing when the Nets traded for James Harden and they gave up these assets. Like, oh, these picks are going to be like down in the 20s, or it's potentially going to be at 30 if they win an NBA championship or something like that. But now look at the Nets now. Like, there's no guarantee in the NBA when it comes to draft picks or any assets. You never know what's going to happen with your team down the road. And the Timberwolves, did they really move the needle a lot getting Gobert? That's a whole other video, but you could say Gobert will kind of be exposed in the playoffs a little bit, even though I do like Gobert. And it says, also on the Mitchell front, teams monitoring the situation believe the Jazz currently are prioritizing draft picks in return for Mitchell. So if they're really prioritizing draft picks, they're either like, yes, it's a rebuild, no doubt about it, if you're really prioritizing draft picks. But next year's draft is definitely the way to do it. You have Victor Wembanyama in that upcoming draft. Maybe you're trying to really move up. He's the most talked about prospect since LeBron James. 7'3", pass, shoot, can do all that. It's freaking ridiculous if you watch this dude play. It's like turning all the sliders up and watching 2K. So, but it comes down to me, like, what, or in my opinion, it comes down to if they do give up 8 first-round draft picks, let me know down below in the comments section if you would do that. Would you give up 8 first-round draft picks for Donovan Mitchell? But it comes down to the value of those draft picks. Are they unprotected? Are they protected? Like, what's the details on those picks? Like, yes, 8 first-round picks is a lot of picks, but it comes down to the details. Are they truly valuable? Because we're trading away our star player here. That was our franchise player for a good amount of years. We want to make sure that there's a little guaranteed value, because there's no guaranteed value in draft picks, especially on draft night. Even if you're moving up to get someone, there's always a hit or miss situation. You're taking a risk either way. You could say the draft is a crapshoot, but you have to really trust your organization when it comes to scouting. Does Danny Ainge trust the scouting department, trust everyone around him, and that type of thing? But you can also maneuver it in trades to get a star player. You can do a lot of things when it comes to draft picks, but the Knicks are also gonna have to give up something that's a little bit guaranteed when it comes to young players, because Donovan Mitchell's 25 years of age. He's not crazy old. He's still pretty much in his prime. And I don't like to say it, but you would probably have to give up Obi Toppin or Emmanuel quickly, or there might be a situation that they're like, you know what, give us both. But I'm not saying I would do this, but if we have to give up both, possibly, like, I would try to lower the draft picks, because 8 first-round draft picks and then giving up quickly and Obi Toppin hasn't gotten a fair shake in New York, and I feel like a brand new fresh start would definitely really benefit him in Utah. But if you're trading for a star player, I guess you do have to take a risk like that. But you probably have to trade. I think Fournier would have to be in there. I don't know how much they value Randall, but you would need the contracts to match. You're gonna have to put in like some type of contract, someone getting paid a good amount of money as well. But you have to give them something a little bit guaranteed. Again, I'm not saying I'd trade Obi or quickly. That's not something I would want to do. Or that's like I want quickly and Obi to stay here. But if you're risking giving up assets, if you really want Donovan Mitchell, you're gonna have to at least give up one of them. So, yes, that's pretty much to talk about there when it comes to the draft capital. So it comes down to the value, how much do they really value them, and the Jazz are really prioritizing picks. How much do they value Fournier? How much do they value Randall? Like, I'm really interested to see how this whole situation plays out. And it said the Knicks have an edge over the Nets and the Heat when it comes to draft capital if the Jazz are really prioritizing draft capital. But now getting into Donovan Mitchell, because he's obviously the huge talk here. He's from New York. He's a Mets fan, always tweeting about the Mets. He knows all about New York. He knows all about the big stage. He's not afraid of the big moment at all. And I feel like he's pretty polarizing. I feel like some people or some fans love Donovan Mitchell, and some people aren't a big fan of Donovan Mitchell when it comes to his game. Maybe he doesn't always make the highest of basketball IQ play, but then on the other side of the coin, you're like, he hasn't really had a huge megastar teammate next to him, so he feels like he has to be in the hero in certain situations. But no doubt about it, when you take a look at his talent, one of the best difficult shot makers in the league. He's an elite shot creator. We need an elite shot creator. We need an it factor. It's a star-driven league. He's a very efficient finisher at the basket. He's an athletic freak of nature. He's in his prime. He's an all-star. He attracts defenses, which will open up more for his teammates. And yeah, he averaged 5 assists per game, but I want to see, when it comes to a mental standpoint sometimes, of will he recognize when someone's on fire at the end of the game to give up the ball and not always play hero ball. Maybe that will change under the New York Knicks. But the big time question mark is, how will his defense be, and how will the fit be with the New York Knicks and the lack of size? Yes, there was a lack of size in Utah. Mike Conley 6'1", Donovan Mitchell 6'1". That didn't really live up to expectations much, and a lot of people were saying we're going to be trading for a player that's never reached the Western Conference Finals. But then, yes, you could say he didn't have a lot around him. Rudy Gobert kind of was a huge Achilles heel, or kind of just really hurt you in the playoffs when it came to the lack of offense. You can't rely upon Jordan Clarkson, who, yes, won 6th Man of the Year a couple years back or a couple seasons back, to really show up in the playoffs really consistently. And Mike Conley was kind of inconsistent. There was a bunch of inconsistency to go around, but I did like what Joe Ingles was when healthy in the playoffs for the Utah Jazz. But I really do believe you need more than that. But when it came to the defense, what I was really disappointed in was his lack of really taking on a challenge defensively. And him coming out of Louisville, yes, he's 6'1", but he has a near 7-foot wingspan, and I thought he always had the effort there on defense, but maybe he was really saving his energy for the offense side of the basketball. That's why he didn't look as interested on defense, I wonder. But he was awful defensively when it came to that Dallas Mavericks series, especially Spencer Dinwiddie, especially Jalen Brunson. They were cooking him up, just allowing him to dribble penetrate on him. So when it comes to defense, when it comes to the size, we won't have a big basketball team. We wouldn't. Jalen Brunson, 6'1". You take a look at Donovan Mitchell, 6'1". I swear he was listed as like 6'3" during the draft process, but they started measuring players differently when it comes to the NBA. Like, they used to measure them with shoes, and now they measure them like without shoes, but they're playing in shoes, so I would just measure them that way. That's just me. Then you have RJ Barrett, that's 6'6". Randall, he's like 6'8", 6'9". He used to be 6'10", but they changed the measurements. And then you have Mitchell Robinson, that's 7 foot. So Jalen Brunson tries on the defense side of the basketball, but it's just common sense in certain mismatches, he's going to struggle. He is. And if Donovan Mitchell doesn't always give his full effort on defense, because he's going to be focusing on offense a lot, which I understand, there's going to be a huge load there. RJ Barrett's going to have to get back to year 2 defense or get a little bit better, because year 3, I thought he was a pretty damn good defender. He took on the challenges, but I do think an injury kind of held him back of not moving his feet as well. Laterally, specifically, I do think he's that dog in him. But Donovan Mitchell, very good player. He's an all-star. I'm not going to say superstar. He hasn't carried his team to like the Western Conference Finals or a championship. That's very hard to do, though. He's had good games. He's had bad games in the playoffs. Sometimes you're like, is that a good shot? Is that not a good shot? Like, there's a bunch of question marks sometimes about Donovan Mitchell when you're watching him play. But obviously, it would be awesome to watch him at Madison Square Garden. We will have a talented roster, but how is it constructed? How will the fit be? You know what I mean? And when you'll watch Donovan Mitchell in New York, he'll be our best player, no doubt about it. But are you a big fan of the fit? Do you think it would just, yes, we'll improve, but do you think we gave up a bunch of draft capital just to really improve one round in the playoffs? And also, when you take a look at things, he had a 33% usage rate when it came to this past season. I believe that was like 4th or 5th in the league. So that's either going to benefit the players around him and really get the defense to collapse and kick it out, or maybe it can go the other way and he ends up taking very contested shots and he's still holding on to those bad habits. I do think he can improve. I'm not saying his stats wise, but when it comes to his mental approach of the game, Donovan Mitchell. And there is some upside to this team. It's just the defense really scares me. Like, Donovan Mitchell, I love, but you have to really look at the realistic side of things. Like, the upside is that Jalen Brunson ends up making an all-star team. Donovan Mitchell ends up continuing to play like an all-star. RJ Barrett takes that all-star-like leap. Randall, I'm not asking him to go back to second year with the New York Knicks, Randall, but his IQ gets a little bit better on the offense side of the basketball. He goes back to the effort. Looks like he's in better shape, but it all comes down to the mental side of the game. Mitchell Robinson continues to be more disciplined. We'll see what happens with the bench, but maybe Tom Thibodeau can get Donovan Mitchell locked in defensively. Let me know down below your whole thoughts on this. Donovan Mitchell, he's still on his contract. He's on his contract through 2025. So, yes, guys, I really appreciate your support. Let me know down below your thoughts. Peace out, y'all.